Nitin is going to talk about revisiting LLMs in planning for military review. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Yeah, I'm Nitin. I'm here to talk about revisiting LLMs in planning from literature review. First of all, I would like to thank all the authors. They are the giants. I'm just standing on their shoulders here. Okay, so why track LLMs in planning? And this coincidentally works on the talk that just happened. We have seen rapid growth as the figure they just showed in intersection of LLMs and planning. 126 papers as categorized by the paper which we'll explore. By late 2023, 126 papers have been categorized as being in the intersection of LLMs and planning, and we have found 47 more and then 49 more by late 2025, and new papers continue to appear monthly, and they span diverse topics. So as we see that the early categorization, which we'll talk about, the 8 categories from a 2024 survey are becoming outdated quite rapidly. Themes are shifting as researchers are exploring new ideas, which you've seen at this conference, and these might not fit the old taxonomy. So there's a need for tracking. Any static literature review cannot keep pace, so we need some way to have a continuous and systematic way to organize and analyze these evolving landscapes. This ensures that researchers can identify emerging trends and gaps promptly and then focus their research on those areas. Why this is important to the planning community is because, especially for related to LLMs, understanding where they come in relation to planning and where they struggle can guide future research, and tracking these trends can reveal promising approaches and even dead ends early on. So here is a paper done by our team early in 2024, which categorized 126 papers into these 8 themes. Some limitations were that, as I mentioned, the taxonomy is static. It provided a foundation, but with new papers coming in monthly, even weekly, we suspected that many of these don't probably fit into these 8 categories as shown in the figure, and new sub-areas might be emerging. So the goal of this work is to build upon this prior work by updating and having an automated categorization process of the field as it evolves, essentially from moving from a one-off survey to a living, continually updating review. So our research question here is how can we track how can we automate the literature review process and track emerging trends, here specifically in LLM-based planning, but it can be generalized to any field, any area. As such, the contributions are threefold. We, first of all, develop an automated platform that is a tool that continuously extracts new papers for now from archive and assists in categorizing them into existing or even new categories. Second, we have a new taxonomy analysis where we analyze category drift by adding those new papers, which we parsed from the tool from November 2023 to September 2024. And we add this to the taxonomy and we report how the new category frequencies have changed and some new categories which we have hypothesized. Last of all, we open source this as a community resource, which includes a visualization platform and an interactive dashboard so that the community can also contribute to this taxonomy, and it can serve as a really good placeholder for further research in this direction. So the ultimate aim is to build a dynamic and adaptive survey that keeps up with the research developments for now in the LLM and planning field, and which will help researchers, especially new researchers, navigate the literature efficiently. So I'm going to go over the pipeline in a bit. We start off with a paper collection, which right now scrapes archive papers related to LLM and planning automatically, and filters by keywords, reduces duplicates, etc., basic filtering. After that, we add that to an ever-growing data set and have automated classifiers in which new papers are auto-labeled by some ML models into one or more categories. If none of the pre-existing categories fit well, they might be flagged as uncategorized, which means possibly a new category. Of course, since ML models can be um, inaccurate, we have a semi-automated process where we also have human experts um, which review and annotate and adjust those labels and resolve disagreements, propose new categories, etc. This all goes to the taxonomy update, which clusters on new themes and reassigns previous themes. Lastly, we have the visualization feedback, where this whole taxonomy feeds back into the visualization tool, and the categorized papers along with those categories can be accessible to everyone online. Lastly, based on community updates and new inputs, this can have a feedback loop where the ever-growing data set also grows and classifiers can improve themselves, as we'll see in a bit. So first of all, the taxonomy and data set, for this paper, we have two types of data sets. One is D1, which is coming from the original paper, which we just saw, 126 papers of LLMs and planning up till November 2023, which have 8 categories. This is our training data, and 47 papers from our tool, which we scraped in the timeline of 2023 December and September 2024, which had to be categorized. So this is our test data of how the taxonomy might evolve. We combine, to simplify the process, we combine just the title and abstract and use those feature vectors using TF-IDF. The reason for not using the entire text is, first of all, it's more difficult to scrape and difficult to parse correctly, since each paper has different formats, different conferences where it's coming from. So for simplicity, and for now, we just choose to combine the title and abstract, which can easily be parsed. Lastly, we have a multi-label versus single-label setup. So the previous survey, which we just saw, had a multi-label categorization where, if need be, some papers might be categorized into multiple categories. But for this one, since single label might be easier to predict, we tested on both multi-label and single-label setups. So the models we choose to test are two types. One is traditional ML, classical ML, using support vector machines, decision trees, random forest, and these all use a one versus rest strategy for multi-label. And the hypothesis are these are lightweight and can work with small data, which we have. So these might outperform the other ones, which are transformer-based, which are just BERT and SciBERT in our case, frozen pre-weights, and then fine-tuning, not fine-tuning, but training on the last layer head. The hypothesis for using these are these can probably use the contextual embeddings of the text and maybe outperform the previous simple ML-based models. However, given the small amount of data set papers which we have, and seeing that we're only using the title and abstract, we hypothesize that just classical ML models might outperform transformer-based. To recap each training, for training, each model was trained on the D1 dataset and tested on classifying D2 on both single label and multi-label modes. So the next part in the loop after the classification is done is the human process, where two expert researchers independently reviewed the model outputs for new papers. If there are any misclassifications which they seem don't make sense, then they flag it and give a new category, or new category if something is inclassified or not labeled by the classifier. To check if the two reviewers are actually in agreement, we measure Cohen's kappa of 0.78, which is quite high, in a range of 0 to 1. So that indicates substantial agreement, and it gives us the confidence that the categories from the two researchers are well defined and the human labeling is good. The outcome of this step is that the human augmented labels are now treated as ground truth for future analysis, which we'll see. And this is training data for new D3, D4, and so on. Results from the paper show that traditional ML was actually better than transformer-based models in most cases. As we see in the single label setup, state vector SVMs are the best, and even surprisingly, BERT and SciBERT are the lowest, have the lowest scores for F1 macro as seen in the picture. For the multi-label setup, decision trees outperformed every other classifiers. And lastly, the 0.83 comes from the human augmented analysis on the multi-label setup. Since last year when we submitted this, a lot of time has passed. We recently ran the tool again, and we found out we made a D3 data set from 49 papers from last October, September to last month. We saw 49 papers released new for LLMs and planning on archive, and we were able to run the pipeline again, and we saw that decision tree now constantly outperforms the other methods. Our hypothesis, which was correct, is that transformer-based models are still lagging, likely due to the small data set size and such domain-specific text. We also categorize the drift. So as we can see, the original data set is the one reported in the previous paper, and the new data set is the one we have in magenta. 6 of the original 8 categories saw their paper share decrease, 2 increased, and 2 new categories, according to the human annotators, emerged. This is, of course, a hypothesis, since you cannot be sure with human labeling, especially ML labeling, that these new papers fall into these categories. So our hypothesis is there is a growing shift in community interest towards moving more practical and integrative uses of LLMs, especially since some people are going against using LLMs in planning. There is a split sort of in the community going from using LLMs versus not using LLMs. We also, like we promised, build this online tool for categorizing the taxonomy, which already has the 2024 and 2025 data sets, some results. And we also provide different ways to have your submissions inside the taxonomy already automatically updated. We also open source the GitHub resource where we have the model output, scraping script, and even the tool for running it yourself. The implications for us is that this is sort of like a living survey, which helps researchers identify where the community is heading. The process we present here is not just specific to LLMs and planning. Any other fast-moving field especially can adopt something similar in semi-automated literature tracking process and can track literature across even subfields. By open sourcing the tool, we invite the community to contribute so that this can serve as a better testbed and better resource for everyone. And at the end, we imagine a robust system down the line that auto-updates with even minimal human input as the models keep improving. Some limitations, of course, exist in that we have a small data set and class imbalance, of course. So the bar shifts, as shown in the graph, should be treated as descriptive and not inferential. Of course, we only use archive and just titles and abstracts, and other venues, and especially full-size text should be used in the future works. Lastly, paper often span multiple themes, even with a high kappa score. These boundaries are fuzzy. In conclusion, we presented a semi-automated analysis for the LLM plus planning literature community that adapts to new papers in real time. We saw category drift, and we even introduced 2 new categories. Lastly, we would like to say that the landscape is rapidly evolving, and our approach is one way to keep up with the new coming papers weekly, monthly. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitin. Are there questions in the audience?
Thank you so much for the talk. As a master's student trying to keep up with the fire hose stream of papers coming out in this area, this looks really useful. One thing I wasn't quite clear on, you say that you're ingesting from archive, but how do you, there's a chicken and egg there with knowing which papers to classify, if that makes sense.
So the tool, the way we built it is it filters from archive based on keywords. So archive has a Python API which you can query, similar to database queries based on filters, for example, CS, AI. You can have natural language filters, natural language keywords. So we don't scrape every paper from archive. We just include those which we think, based on a predefined set of keywords, are relevant to LLM plus planning, if that answers your question.
Thank you for your work. First, an observation. I think these kind of tools are useful not only for young researchers, but also for senior researchers who don't have much time to look at all the papers. So I think, as you mentioned, this tool could be very useful also in other fields, not only for planning. And for example, in medicine, if you want to keep track of treatments for a particular disease that evolved during time, or diets, such kind of things. So I was wondering whether something similar already exists in the literature, given that it's very important outside planning also.
That is a good question. We did, when we were initially making the tool, we did try to find some related work if something did exist. But to our best of knowledge, nothing was this, to this extent, where it was like it started off as automatic and then got semi-automated on the way. To our knowledge, I don't think anything similar exists.
There. Rick, go forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do want to echo that I do think this could apply to a lot of other domains and would be super awesome to see there. But I guess going back to the first question, I might ask a more facetious version of that, and I apologize if it's out of line, but I agree archive is definitely going to be the place to scrape if you want the most comprehensive list of papers, but archive, given it's getting better, but it's also a place where anyone can upload anything they want, and then many things do eventually get vetted by a conference while that may lack peer review.
Yeah.
So I guess, was there any intent to also look at then maybe a level of validation beyond the human in the loop for the classification process, but also make sure it's, I guess, I don't want to say valid work, but maybe work that's gone further than just maybe someone throwing an idea up without going any further in the verification?
I see what you're saying. So when we started the work, that was definitely in the talks of how archive is just like a scholarly dump. Anyone can do anything. Right now, for this work, we just used it because it was easy. But not related to us, archive, I don't know if you've seen, has recently announced that it would only support, I guess, peer-reviewed or some works for the CS category. So they're doing work for us, sort of. But of course, we don't consider it for this. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I actually wasn't aware, so I appreciate the update. Thank you.
I mean, don't quote me on it, but I saw it a few days ago.
It's only for survey papers.
Oh,
CS
okay.
category. So
I
they're
see.
Screened if they're not peer reviewed.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Well, let's thank the speaker again. Thank you.